Okay, we said AND is a build automation tool. Actually, it also have other usage. For example, you can make it a test automation tool. Okay, so in addition to build automation, we can do test automation. And we're going to see an example of using AND for JUnit. We've seen JUnit before. Okay, we'll see it again. We'll see more of it today with an example and also how to call it from AND. Okay, first, we've talked about regression tests so many times. Regression test is a testing that we do after we modify the code. The purpose of regression test is to make sure that our software change did not introduce new bug. So regression tests basically test whatever that we know have been working before, and we want to test it again to make sure that it continues to work. So it's not, the regression test is not to test, not necessary to test the new feature. In fact, it tests the old feature, okay, not affected by the new software change. And we said automation, whatever you want to automate is only useful if you need to do it repeatedly. Okay, so regression tests, because we will be changing software a number of times throughout the life, throughout its life. So regression test is economical because one effort of developing it, then it pays off. Almost the same with build automation or test automation, because once you do it, you will execute it again. So in the future, you don't need to worry about the compilation command and so on. So this doing it once and save effort for the future is economical. Okay, so only economical is if the task will be repeated. So since we will be building the software every time after change, so this exercise of building actually repeats. So that's why it's economical. And one small thing with build.xml is actually still somewhat difficult to read, although we can say it's human readable. So in this case, we say we know we want to define a property called file and something like this. We want to define a property and the name, the name is java.debug, and to mean that if I am, say, doing the compilation, do I want to turn the debug option on or off? I guess in your coursework, you did not use Java compiler thoroughly enough to know about these sort of things. But debug option is something that we can turn on and turn off. Okay, I think I probably has additional. I have additional slide to talk about it a few slides later. So maybe I would suspend my discussion of what it does until that slide. But so as you can see, sometimes we'll define properties and it will be used inside the task to specify attributes. So these properties will be used, and it may be nice to define that property at the top, just like the make file that we saw. Okay, the make file, if we define something here, then we only change it once, and all the changes will happen in the command. Okay, so is the compilation flags. We define it once, and it can be repeated here. Similarly, for our build.xml, okay, maybe we only want to define the source directory once, and then from the rest of the file, we will repeatedly use this variable. Okay, so this saves us the effort. If later on we change, we only need to change it one place. Same for the debug mode. Maybe I have many files that I need to compile, and so at some stage, I will turn the debug option on, and later on I change it to off. So when I change it to off, I only need to change it one place. Even if this variable appear in 100 compilation task in the file, okay, because ... means the file will likely be very, very long, okay. It's going to be long. So if I use variable, it will save time, okay, make things more consistent. And likely all these variable or properties are something that I may change. And these tasks, this target, are something that I generally do not change. Okay, so once the system becomes stable, I generally don't change the target, these things. But maybe if a customer tell us there's a bug, then I would need to, all these target will not change, but I would turn on the debug mode and try to run the test again, right? So properties are something that we may change, but these target and task are something that we don't change. So it is beneficial to separate them in different files. So some file may hold all the properties, and some file will hold all the target and task. So that will be the best thing to do. And then we would include the properties, okay, using this command. We will include these properties. So the file, so we sort of separate the files, separate all these information to the changeable ones, likely changeable ones in the property file. Fine. Okay, so this part, but this slide explained that maybe by accident, I defined a property in the property file, but in here, so in this property file, I set the debug to on, okay, in this property file. But by mistake or mainly by mistake, maybe I defined it again inside the .xml file. So the same property was defined once inside this property file externally in a separate file, and also as an internal property in this file. So what will the value happens in here? What value will be used for this Java C task? So I wrote a small test to find out. So after the property, after the inclusion of this file from this property file, I set this property file, set it to on, and then in here I set it to off, and I want to find out whether from this point on, whether the debug is off here or on from the action of the file. Well, so I use an echo task. So I echo this message, debug, and then give me the variable name. And when I run it, I find out that the echo task print out this message is on. So that means when this build automation file was used, as long as it's defined once in this property file, subsequent effort to change it to off will have no effect. Okay, so that brings us to some interesting knowledge that there is one kind of programming language, it's called functional programming language. For example, Erlang and Haskell. Their treatment is they do not allow a variable to be assigned values second times. So after you assign it once, that's it. You cannot assign a new variable. So, but how do you write programs with this? You cannot write a statement called I equals I plus 1 anymore if the functional language has this limitation that properties can only be assigned once. Okay, we'll talk about it if you take my course in the final year. Take my Erlang course 363 in the second term. But just to let you know that there is one class of programming language different from the one that you're already familiar with. The one you're familiar with is called imperative programming languages. Java, C belong to that family. Okay, but for us, there's another. So in this case, the designer of ants only take the first your earphones too loud, so you're talking very loud. Okay. Okay. And now back to debug. Okay. Most compilers has debug option, and to give you to help you easier with the debugging exercise. So what does it mean to compile with debug information? Well, if you have debug information, that means your source code, your OO code has object name, class name, method name, line number, this sort of things. If you compiled it with this debug information and the code fail, then the error message you see will show the file name, line number, and so on. Okay, but let's say if the compilation did not have this information, then it's just the machine code that is executing. So when it's executing the machine code, it is just moving information from one storage to another. It does not even know what object name, not what variable name, what method names you are calling. Okay, so those information are high-level language information. It does not exist by default when you're executing it. So if you want to have those information, then you need to turn on the debug option. Okay, sometimes maybe some compiler, if it's intended for beginning programmer, they may have default to include some debug mode. But otherwise, when you are into production, chances are you may turn off all the debug mode, okay, to make the code faster and smaller, okay? Because remember, those information are actually additional information. Because when you're executing, the virtual machine, whether it's real machine or virtual machine, all it cares are the basic machine instruction, okay? It does not even care or does not need to know whether you are using it in a variable, whether this class is the parent of the other class. it does not need that kind of information. Okay, those information were gone when you compile the code into machine code. Okay, so those are that's why the debug mode is one of the options that you can turn on and off. This is a feature of AND that you can define some path ID or either some or path reference. Okay, if you define path reference, it sort of simplify how you refer to it in the future. Okay, so now let's go. Sorry, when I do the editing on the Mac PowerPoint, but then the Microsoft PowerPoint created with a slightly different format.個 reason 就係咧，我個 Mac 機嘅 PowerPoint 咧係唔 support 我係 create 嗰啲 notes 嘅。你有冇人睇過我嗰啲 slide 咧？有一 set 嘅 slide 係入邊有啲 notes 喺度㗎。你有冇睇過？我有兩個。你知唔知？你有冇人望過 ？Actually 呢個係阿 Sir， 你可能問阿 Sir 你講緊乜嘢啊？咁樣 OK 嗱。有冇人上個網睇過呢啲㗎？都有㗎係嘛？嗱，譬如 I have one set. This is slide only, which is the one that I'm using. Another one is with notes. So with notes right below the slide, I have some additional explanation like this, point by point. Okay, if so, the idea is to this. Actually, I think this is something I do it for this course in the second term. First term it was not like that. First term I only give you the slide. The second term I try to give you the notes so that these notes roughly correspond to the things I said in class. And so hopefully some of you may learn through the video, through the class, or some of you may learn by reading this. So actually when I'm reading this, some of these explanation may even be better than the class in-class explanation, because when I'm preparing this, like I'm not rushing. Like right now, because you're in front of me, I won't stop and think for 1 minute to say the next word. But when I'm doing this, I may be sitting there for 1 minute, 2 minutes to decide what to write. So sometimes the things written here may actually be a little bit clearer. But the whole idea is for you to be able to have multiple ways of learning if you want. Okay? 有冇同學係今日依家先發現有呢樣嘢㗎？你都知道㗎係嘛？之前已經知道。Okay. So, but sometimes when I run out of time, I may not be able to prepare the detailed notes for every slide. Okay. But back to why I was talking about that was on Mac, the Office on Mac, I cannot create the notes. Okay, the Mac allow me to enter the notes, but not creating the note in the PDF. So I have to go to the Windows machine to do the note page, the detailed note creation for the PDF. But somehow, like the formatting is off a little bit in the Windows, so I did not have time to check that. Okay, So I guess it's not totally my fault, although I can do additional work to prevent this sort of things. Let me blame Microsoft for this time. Okay. So now let me explain this software that we are testing. In Western countries, often the tax rate depends on how much money you earn. In Hong Kong, we have a flat tax rate, okay? I can't remember whether it's 17% or something like that. But in Canada, the tax rate is something like that, okay? So this is the annual income. Of course, this is roughly what I recall from 10, 20 years ago when I was living there, when I was working there. So that means if you make $30,000 a year Canadian, okay? If you make $30,000 a year, then from that amount you only pay this tax rate, okay? Of course, there are also personal exemption 咧就即係話你賺頭嗰8000蚊、9000蚊嘅加幣年薪咧係唔使俾稅嘅 ，OK？ So after deducting that, the taxable income would go like this. So the first 38,000 may go like this, and then between the $38,000 and $1 to $60,000, that portion you pay 33%, okay? And then for this portion above 60,000, you pay that percent. So you may ask, 會唔會啲人賺38,010蚊嘅人咧，抽稅係多過37,000幾嗰啲人咧 ？Of course it won't, because the reason is it is 如果你係賺38,100蚊嘅人咧 ，OK， 佢頭嗰38,000咧都係用低嗰個 rate， 只係你 extra 嗰100蚊咧就用呢個33% 嗰個 rate，OK， 所以咧以前曾經嗱而家出邊你哋翻工咧 ，IT 嘅人咧其實已經好少有 OT 人工嘅 ，OK， 咁但係睇先，我而家數緊。啱啱好30年前，我喺 IBM 做嘅時候咧，我哋仲有 OT 人工嘅。咁嗰陣時嗰啲 OT 人工咧，你諗下加拿大嘅稅制係咁樣喎，所以我哋成日都個感覺咧係非常之唔好嘅，因為 OT 俾咗100蚊我咧，差唔多抽咗我50蚊，即係去咁，所以呢度所以你而家知道點解我而家翻咗嚟香港做嘢 ，OK？ 咁 OK 咁但係當然嗰度係有啲好嘅嘢啦，即係加拿大有啲好嘅，即係 definitely 都有啲好嘅嘢嘅。咁啊，所以 in the future I think I will still go back to work and pay the high tax there. Okay, there are also some good things about Canada. Okay, so this is an example. You can see how the example works. Let's say if you're making $40,000, it means your first 38,000 will be at this rate, and then the remaining 2,000 will be at this high rate. So you're paying, like if you make 40,000, it's not the complete 40,000 at 33%. It is only this 2,000 at the 33%. So you're paying 8,000. So the overall is maybe just 20%. Okay, because it sort of average out this 19%. With this high part for a small one. But if you make a lot, like if you make $100,000, okay, that means your first 38,000 will be at this rate, and then the second bracket you have 22,000, you're charging at this rate, and then after 38,000, 22,000. You still have 40,000, like because your total income is 100,000. So your remaining 40,000 will be charging the tax rate for 39%. So that is how the taxation system in Canada works. So we are writing a program to test our program. So we write one program to calculate the tax, and then we use JUnit to test if we are doing the correct calculation. So that is the whole idea, and we have talked about unit testing. So this is just to remind ourselves what is test driven development or test first development. Uh, it includes refactoring, which clean up the code. I won't go through this. I'll let you look at it. So I guess at the beginning, people only use the term TDD, okay? But at some point, people try to distinguish with or without code refactoring. So some people say that, okay, test first development means you write the test first, but you may not do code refactoring. And if you write the test first and you add code refactoring, then they call it TDD, test-driven development, okay? But so some people distinguish TDD and TFD, some people don't. So it's not a whole big deal. I would not ask exam question like this uh, to test your memory. Okay. So let's write. So let's be true to our test first development. Let's write the test. Okay. So we define the tax rate with some uh, constant name, and of course we need to import JUnit, okay, JUnit test and JUnit assert. From the assert package, we can call assert equals. There are other ones. There are assert true, assert false. So what assert equals does is it will compare this, the first argument, with the second argument, and the third argument is the tolerance of the difference, because for calculation, floating point calculation, there may be some precision problem. So maybe you want to allow 0.01 error, rounding error. Okay, so this, if you don't want to accept any error, then you can use 0.00 as the tolerance. But sometimes we want to allow up to half a cent or something like that. Okay. So this add test is the annotation we tell JUnit that this is a test. Actually, this test function, it contains 4 small tests. This first test says if the income is 0, then I use this function. So this is the function I'm trying to test right here. Okay, tax rate. Okay, so I declare a variable called rate, and it is used to test the first tax bracket from $0 to $38,000. Okay, and so by writing these 4 tests, I shows that $10,000 of income tax, I would be the entire amount, 10,000, multiplied by the first tax bracket rate of 0.195. Okay, but in the case of $38,000 or $50,000, okay, their tax in this bracket. Remember which bracket is already determined by here. The first tax bracket rate is captured in this tax rate variable. If I do use this tax rate variable to calculate uh, the first tax bracket version portion of $50,000 is still 38,000 times the first tax bracket rate. Okay, so this is, don't confuse this rate calculate tax as the total tax. It is only the tax in one bracket. Okay, so maybe later on, the true system will have three tax rate and then uh, do with an income to do it once for every tax bracket and add them up, and then that would be the true result. But so this actually we are testing the building blocks of calculating tax bracket 1. So this is to test the tax bracket 2. Okay, the tax bracket 2 is from the range of 38,000 to 60,000. Okay, and I save it in the rate, and if for zero income, $10,000 income, 38,000 income, uh, it will be 0 for the second tax bracket, because second tax bracket does not start until it go above 38,000. So only here the last three would show that, okay, for 40,000 income, well, after deducting 38,000 from the tax bracket 1, what's in the second tax bracket is only 2,000. So 2,000 times second tax bracket should be the same as this rate for 40,000. Okay, and for the 60,000, I reduced by the 38 in the first bracket. Everything is so the remaining second tax bracket is 22,000. And well, even if it's go higher, the additional $20,000 from 60,000 to 80,000 will go to the third tax bracket. So it does not affect the second tax bracket outcome. So that's why the last and the second last has the same result of 22,000 times second tax bracket rate. So, and tax bracket 3 is also similar, okay, very similar. So this is the definition of the tax rate that we use. But remember, we are only uh, testing or calculating the tax in one bracket. It's not the total one. So in a way, this is an easier program to write. But anyway, we're showing you an easier version of calculating the tax only in one bracket. And now, I guess the key character in this presentation is the and. Okay, how and allow you to do JUnit. Okay, so this the target will have a name, and it depends on this. So someone can call it by using and test 0. Okay, by entering the command and test 0 to run this target. So this target will specify where the thing is. Okay, and this is the package name and the tax rate test, which is this guy, and So by doing this, I'm running the test. And oh, this I have two lines. One line shows the output on the screen, and the other one, I think this one shows on the screen because use file is false. So the output will go to the screen. And this one, I have a second formatter. So this second formatter will show the thing on the file. So this uh, allow me to see the test result on the screen as well as in the file. Here you can see is placed in the file .txt file. Okay, the function is very similar. Okay, but probably this is from two uh, different tests, so that the time for testing text bracket 1 differ very slightly from 0.021 to 0.022. But otherwise, that's what happens when we run the test. And okay, looks like if sometimes you have a large number of tests to do, okay, and you may have lots of assert equals like this, okay, and so that would be very cumbersome to write this by putting a lot of stuff in a function call. Another way to do it slightly is to parameterize it. So this part I'm showing you the feature of JUnit. So the JUnit allowed you to say income here, text here, put it in an array, okay, and then with appropriate function call, then you can provide that to, for example, the text calculator test. So text calculator test has these parameters. Okay, the parameters are defined with this annotation, and so these numbers will be fed to these two values. Okay, so these two values, income and text, will be fed to this income and text. And so in the end, so we're sort of extracting all the things from lengthy, dot 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 means many more, to just an array. Okay, so we'll take just a 1-2 minutes break to finish.